Welcome to Survivor Not by Chance podcast. I am your host, Asia. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited. We have the Love Poet here, and she's going to talk about generational conditioning. She's coming from Australia, so we're not going to be able to record live, but we are pre-recording the show, and we are so excited to have her here. She comes with a lot of knowledge, tips, and tools. She is a life coach and a love poet, spreading love and encouraging others to be their authentic selves. How many of us can learn more about how to be our authentic selves? There's so many things that we've experienced that we're going to talk about today that kind of prevents us from being our authentic self. Let's see what the Love Poet had to say today.
Kings and queens, beautiful human beings. It is Maniba here, aka the Love Poet, as everybody knows me. I write love poetry. I am also a qualified life coach, and I do motivational writing. As a lot of you know, I spend a lot of my mornings doing motivational quotes, but I do coach people as well. So, it is my mission in life to spread love. It is my mission in life to help people understand how they should be operating with other people authentically and from a place of love. And let's hope we can change the world one heart at a time.
Isn't she amazing? Oh my goodness, I love her. So please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you would love to see more content where we're able to help you heal, grow, and know you're a survivor not by chance. You survived because you fought to survive. Now it's time to thrive. Maniba, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So we met, I don't know how long ago. It's been quite some
It's
time.
been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
And I have been so impressed and so inspired by the content that you put out. So, whoever's watching and listening, please go and follow her on IG, NeeNee The Love Poet. And trust and believe you will be inspired every day you see her post. So, just tell me a little bit about what you're doing as a coach and what got you into this realm of helping others become their authentic selves.
I actually, funny story. I decided to do life coaching because my stepsister in South Africa actually saw that I used to do daily affirmations online, and she said, "I think you'd be great at this." So I had no idea what a life coach was before that. I looked it up and I was like, "Oh my God, this is just right up my alley." So I actually moved to Sydney to study life coaching and achieve that. And I think the reason I decided to become a life coach was because I feel like at that point in my life, I needed something.
Mm.
I was looking for something. And I used to get a lot of my inspiration from people on networks online. So when I did it, it would make sense because I was encouraging people in my own way without the certification anyway, right? So people used to come to me and ask me all sorts of things just because of my life experience as a young mom, as a single mom. And it kind of drove me in that direction. And it just came naturally to me, you know? And that's how I became a coach. Poetry, though, I've been writing poetry since I was 12 years old. It's
Oh,
just,
that's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, in terms of being a coach, it just, it happened in 2016 and here we are. So
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely beautiful. What got you into writing at such a young age?
I think I don't even, I just loved writing when I was young. Like I used to write poems for my mom and my grandmother and my dad. Every birthday would just flow off my lips. So it just became a thing for me since I was little and I just kept writing. And then I found as I got older that poetry was a way of me releasing and escaping. And, as every writer will tell you, that's their that's the place that they go to release. So I found that writing just helped me release a lot of the stuff that I was not sure of when I was young, you know. But also, I took to love poetry because I think I watched, my parents' love story. He's my stepdad, and he raised me since I was young. And I used to watch them when I was young, and it just inspired me because I I knew love when I looked at my parents and how my
Mm,
dad treats my mom. And it just being a poet, I decided to just write about love all the time. And that's where the love poetry came from. I was actually inspired by my parents, and I don't even think they know this, but that's where the love poetry came from at such a young age. And that's how I came to writing. And I just continued, and here we are. I've got a lot of writing that I haven't published, love poetry that I haven't published, and I don't know if I ever will. But every now and again, I might put something out on social media for people to read. But the love poetry is kind of, I guess it started from a very private place. So I'm still not comfortable, letting it all out yet. So yeah,
well, that's beautiful. It's always amazing when you have someone to show you what true, authentic, pure love is, and
absolutely.
to be able to experience it at a young child, seeing it in your
Yeah.
parents. That is such a beautiful experience.
It really is. It really is. And I think that that's, a lot of the times people are not so lucky like me and like my sister, where we were able to have a man come into our lives and raise us like his own and show us what real love is, and we're very grateful for him. And a lot of the times now, obviously, as you get older and you start writing love poetry, it's a lot about what you're experiencing or what you would ideally like to experience, but also you never forget that, it came from a really, really healthy place,
Yeah.
and not everybody's so lucky. So I'm very grateful.
That is such a
Yeah,
beautiful, inspirational example. Thank you so much for sharing that.
thank you.
So, you talk a lot about being your authentic self.
Mm,
And recently, I've seen that you've been talking a lot about generational conditioning. Now, generational conditioning can mean so many different things to so many different
right,
people, depending on where they live. Now,
correct.
I'm in the United States and you're in Australia.
Hmm.
Even though we're so far away, we have so many similar mindsets when it comes to generational conditioning. So let's just talk about what we think generational
Mm.
conditioning is.
Okay, well, I'll go first. Look, I, if I had to put it on a broad scale, I would say that, to put it in simple terms, there is a set of rules that come from your ancestors. And as generations go on, those rules stick. But what we don't realize is that the rules that have applied that may have worked previously may not work in the next generation, simply because as we grow older and as generations go on, knowledge becomes more available, tools become more available, and our ways of thinking changes. So I feel like if I had to say generational conditioning and what it would be sticking to the same mindset and not having growth, in the back of your mind when you're moving forward through your children and through your children's children, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful definition. I completely agree with you. I also believe that depending on different ethnic backgrounds and how someone grew up can
Yeah,
also have a lot to do with different types of generational conditioning. So,
100%.
generational conditioning basically for me, it's everything Nini said in addition to whatever I'm gonna say and more. Okay, so
Correct.
that's not
There's a lot to unpack in it. I don't even think we have time to
right.
unpack everything, but yes, 100%.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
generational, let's break that down. That
Mm.
goes from multiple generations. So it can be myself, it can be my children, it can be my mother, my
Mm.
grandmother, my great great grandmother, my
Yeah.
great great grandfather. And so, as we learn as individuals from our families, they teach us. We're learning tools that they had. And so, a lot of these different tools are passed down from generation to generation to generation. Now,
Yeah.
the conditioning part comes in when your family wants you to be a specific way
Right.
based
Mm.
on their own views and perceptions.
Correct.
So, what we're talking about today is how to break through those generational conditions and become the best version of yourself and be authentic. Now, so
Mm.
say, for example, for myself, one of the generational conditions that I experienced growing up was um, having the idea of lack,
Mm.
poverty mindset. Um,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna go to the store. Don't ask for anything because I'm broke. I don't have any money.
Right.
That type of generational conditioning. When I became an adult, I inhabit those traits and
Mm.
would believe I didn't have any money
Lack.
because,
Yeah.
right, the lack and poverty
I
mindset.
think we also went through that similar conditioning. Um, and I can relate to that. And obviously, again, it's not particularly their fault.
Right.
It's just that's what it was, you
Yeah.
know. But 100%, I relate to that. Yeah.
And if you like, Nina, you can give us some additional ideas around generational conditioning. What examples would you feel would be generational conditioning that some people may be experiencing in this moment?
Yeah. Again, like you said, there's so many, right? Um, I would have to. I would probably have to say, the part of the cultural conditioning as well. Like, a lot of ethnic families experience um, cultural conditioning where, you know, in our culture, you can't, as a woman, you can't have a voice. In our culture as a woman, you shouldn't be on a platform. In our culture as a woman, you can't do this and you can't do that. Um, that is a conditioning I think that a lot of cultures experience. So
Yes.
when a woman comes out, for example, and look, I'm not saying it only, abuse and things like that only happen to women. That's not what I'm saying. But just as an example,
Hmm.
women tend to have less of a voice in a lot of ethnic cultures. Just be quiet. Just be quiet. Don't say anything. Don't cause a scene. Don't, and what that has, in turn has done to us, it has, even if we're not causing a scene, we are not able to speak up about the things that have wronged us or the people that have wronged us, the things that have been done to us. Um, we're not able to speak up and stand up for ourselves because women are supposed to be a certain way and
Yes.
hold themselves to a certain regard. Now, um, in my belief, and this is how my belief, this is not a generational belief, you can still be a lady and you can still stand up for yourself. You can still be a lady and say no. You can still be a lady and say, I don't like the way you are treating me. You
Hmm.
don't have to be silenced. You don't have to be quiet because anything that goes against your core values as a human being should be able to stand up for yourself, whether you're a male or a female. So that's just an example I think that a lot of people can relate to. And with me, my mother's a very quiet, placid, humble woman, and I love her to death. But she is also, oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. Don't say anything. Keep quiet. But what that in turn has allowed us to do is put up with so much when we didn't have to as women. I've been there. The cycle had continued until I had a daughter and I
Mm,
realized the voice. And my
yeah.
daughter the things that I taught her, I had to get myself out of that conditioning because if I didn't, my daughter would pick it up too. You know,
Mm,
so that's an example coming from my own experience, and I can only ever speak from my own experience and the experience of things that I've seen and people that have spoken to me in a general sense. So I think that's a big one. It's a big one because it happens in a lot of cultures.
I agree. I
Yeah,
totally agree with you.
yeah.
Another one I'll add to that is different generational conditions in regards to children speaking their mind
Mhm.
or stating their opinions
Right.
to their parents or elders. The way I grew up, I was not allowed.
Me neither. And that's another one that I would have mentioned as well if we had a moment. Yes, me
Yeah,
neither. Mm.
I wasn't allowed to speak my truth
Yeah.
as a child.
Mm.
And when I began raising my children, I started that same type of generational condition.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I had to think about it and realize my children are human beings and they
Mm.
are allowed to be entitled to their own opinions and beliefs. They don't have
100%.
to follow my belief system spiritually, emotionally, or anything otherwise. It would
Mm.
be their choice. So that's something that I know a lot of people have trouble speaking their
Correct.
truth or even healing parts of themselves as a
Yeah.
result of not speaking their truth to
Mhm.
their elders.
Yeah. I look, I'm blessed to have beautiful parents, but we have, like I mentioned to you off the show, my mum and I have had those conversations, those real conversations that a lot of women can't have with their mothers or their fathers. I've had the conversation with my dad too about how important it is for them to understand that it's okay from our differences. We have differences, and it's okay for our opinions to be different. That does not mean that I respect you less. Does not mean I'm disrespecting you. It means that I have my own mind. And this is what we talk about when I say, how are we to become our authentic selves if we are not given the opportunity to have our own opinions and thoughts and perceptions, right? Because if you think about it, everybody's life and the way they think, it's a perception. It's their own perception of what's going on around them. Now, if you take that away from somebody, they're not going to be able to think for themselves at all. So when they get older, they can't make decisions. So when I had the conversation with my mother, I even said, she can see the difference in my child because my child has an opinion about everything, right? I taught her that. I taught her to question everything, and I taught her to stand up for herself, and I taught her to have her own mind, like think for herself. So when I remember in the beginning of that process, when she started to do that, I found myself being my mother. Like, how can you say that? Not meaning anything bad, obviously, but
Right.
it's a culture shock. It's a culture shock, right? So I had to stop myself, and I had to say, listen, it's about time that I stop that way of thinking and allow my daughter to do what she needs to do. I think we may have lost you.
Okay, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but we are back. This topic is getting real hot and heavy, so technology couldn't handle it. But let's go, NeeNee. Tell me, let's pick up back where you were talking about in regards to your daughter.
Yeah, so I was just saying, my daughter has opinions, and she's got opinions about everything, right? So it was through my daughter, I think, that my mom and dad's eyes were a little bit more opened about, changing the way that we deal with each other so that it allows space for people to be themselves. When you're talking about the cultural conditioning and you're talking about all those things, it's not always easy. It's not, a walk in the park all the time, but it does help when, you have a grandparent who has a grandchild who's seeing I think they see a lot of me in her because I was very opinionated, but I wasn't always allowed to be. But my daughter, on the other hand, that's not their child. That's my child. So when she has an opinion and I accept it, my poor mother sometimes has to listen and she gets her ears chopped off. But that's the change in the conditioning. It's allowing, you know, space for people to understand who they are just because they have their own thoughts and opinions on things, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So again, not everybody's so lucky, not everybody's so lucky to have that. And it's still a work in progress. It's not perfect. I think these things take a very long time. Um, and they're not always going to go according to how we think they should go when it comes to growth and having that growth mindset. That some things just won't ever change, but at the same time, I think it's important that our children understand that it's okay, to have opinions when we were not allowed to have opinions. And I don't think it was a malice thing. I don't think it was something that I think that's just how they were raised to. They didn't change the narrative, you
Yeah.
know, they didn't know any better and they didn't have the tools.
Right.
So, yeah.
I agree with you. Completely agree. The other thing I wanted to just really quickly touch on when it comes to generational conditioning is that setting healthy boundaries is
Mm,
healthy.
yeah.
Many times you may have family members or friends who do not respect your healthy boundaries that you're setting or respect the
Yeah.
boundaries that you're setting. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it's based off of their own generational
Right.
conditioning.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And one of the things that one of the tools that I give my clients, as you would probably know as well, is setting healthy boundaries. It's a task. It's a very big task. And sometimes, like one of my clients, I gave them a month to see how they go with those boundaries. But with that comes them learning effective communication, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of the times we think boundaries is a way of saying, something bad to somebody. We think that setting a boundary means I'm telling you, hey, watch yourself. Don't. That's not what it is. A boundary is saying I want you in my life and I appreciate you, but I still need you to respect my little space for whatever circumstance you're under. So, one of those setting boundaries with my clients is learning effective communication techniques, just so that they can assert their own needs in a healthy way. And I think that's another thing that comes with generational conditioning is not necessarily every conversation in terms of boundaries was a healthy one. So it's teaching people at the same time that it's okay to be respectful in setting your boundaries, but also it shows people that, I'm giving you the respect and I need you to give me mine, in a nice way.
Yes, I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to generational conditioning, sometimes it can be very hard or challenging for people to learn how to be their authentic selves.
Mm,
And these conditions can mold, actually, not can, it does primarily mold who we are. Now, when we become adults, we're starting to learn who we want to be.
mm.
So, learning how to be your authentic self, what can you tell our viewers in regards to learning how to be your authentic self?
Um, so when I started to really think about being my authentic self and how people were doing that for me when I was dealing with them. I went through a period of my life where people were not being authentic with me and I was being authentic with them. And it really made me think about if the shoe was on the other foot, what would you expect from me? Right?
Yeah.
Everything that we do in life, we should always put the shoe on the other foot. And for me, operating authentically meant if I expect you to be real with me, I have to be real with you. If I
Yeah.
expect to be treated with respect, I'm going to come with respect. What happens after that, after my boundary has been broken or the respect has been diminished or whatever the case may be? You know, yes, I can remove myself, but initially when you're interacting with people, people love realness, you know. So for me, I think the important thing is to remember how it would feel if somebody else was not operating authentically. And you get a lot of that, right? A lot of people are not really being authentic with you. Okay. As you walk your day to day and you deal with people, you know who's being real with you and who isn't. So
Yes.
I think it never matters how the other person is doing what they're doing. When you think about how it would feel if it was being done to you, it helps you understand that it's imperative. You know, it's important for you to come at people with a real, you know, authenticity about you,
Yes.
because then there's nowhere left to go. They say, you know, once you tell the truth, it's out there. Once you're being authentic and you're real, this is who I am. It's out there now. People can take from it what they will, you know. And I think it's just important to remember how you want to be treated when you operate that way. That's kind of what helped me, because I looked at people that weren't being real with me at a time in my life where I really needed, like, I was like, listen, I just want to be a coach. I want to study. I want to do poetry. I want to focus on my purpose. And people dismissed me. People were
Mm.
not being real with me. I had all sorts of things happen to me at that transition in my life. And it made me let go of a lot of people. So it made me understand that I don't want to operate as a person who's not being real with anybody. Number one, learning from other people's behaviors. And number two, I don't want to deal with anybody that's not authentic with me,
Yes.
you know? So yeah, I think it's just important to realize that you have to be treat people the way you want to be treated. That's really it,
I
you know?
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And I also will add that a lot of times people don't know how to be their authentic selves.
Mm,
So, what I will say is learning what you like,
yeah.
learning what you don't like, learning
Mm,
what your pet peeves are, learning
yes.
what your boundaries are, learning when you're triggered by
Yeah.
situations and how to handle those triggers properly.
Mm,
That will teach you how to be your authentic self. It's
yeah.
not going to look like any other person's life. It's not
No.
going to look like anyone else's journey, but also
Hmm.
giving yourself compassion as you go through this journey and
Yeah.
as
You
you
need to
go
be
through
gentle with
the
yourself,
process.
100%. Because I think when you face your own truth, it's already a scary process, right?
Yes.
People do not want to face themselves. That sometimes we don't even want to face ourselves. Um, 100% agree with you, because I feel like if we cannot face our own truths, how are we supposed to accept other people's?
Mm,
So being your authentic self, if you want to talk about how we really have to do that, you go a lot deeper than what I spoke about. But on a deeper level, I think you have to be able to give yourself grace when learning about the things that you are now not okay with and okay with. Because generational conditioning will have you facing truths about yourself that you don't like if you're
yes.
trying to change them. If you're not trying to change them, though, you will be fine. But if you are trying to change them and you are trying to live authentically and release all of that conditioning from your system, you are going to find parts of yourself that you don't like.
Yes, I
And
agree.
you need to be compassionate with yourself. You need to be gentle with yourself and understand that what you're doing is you're just releasing parts of you that no longer serve you, you know? So, yeah.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for the input. Now, let's also talk about how to operate from a place of love. So, we go through acknowledging our generational conditions that are on
Mhm.
our lives. And please, whoever's watching, get some paper and pen. And after you watch this show, write down what you believe generational conditions may be in your family line, and
Mm.
not only that, write down what you feel you are in this moment in regards to being your authentic self. and then read it and process
Mm.
it so you can learn how you can grow and evolve
Yeah.
moving forward. And now, how can we be in a place of love as we're learning to be our authentic selves?
And I think what you said there, it starts with facing the generational conditioning that is not allowing you, number one, to be authentic, and number two, then to operate with people from a place of love. Because and they all tie in together,
Yes.
right? They all tie, whether we like to believe it or not. We can say, we are operating with people from a place of authenticity, but if we have ignored our generational conditioning, right, and we are pretending that it doesn't exist, and we are moving on with our lives, how are we being authentic? We're not
Right.
facing our own truth. And if you're not facing your own truth, you're not loving yourself, and you can't really be loving others. Because if you come from a place of love and you've healed yourself, or you are on a journey to healing yourself, you understand that you will take what no longer serves you and you will remove it because it doesn't align with your core values, right?
Yes.
That will then allow you to be authentic. It will allow you to be love. It will allow you to be, open to all these different things and new people and all sorts of things. But when you don't face your generational conditioning and you don't heal yourself from those things, you are actually blocking yourself from being authentic. So you can't really be authentic with other people if you're not authentic with yourself, you
I,
know? Yeah.
yeah, I completely agree. And then operating from a place of love, it's going to look different for every
Yeah.
single individual. Okay.
Mm,
You may have healthy boundaries set in place so that you can operate safely
mm,
in love. And whatever those boundaries are, I want to honor those boundaries in this moment and know and let you know that you can continue to operate from a space of love. Um, being kind and gentle to yourself in these moments and allowing others to love you. When NeeNee said to basically release what's not no longer serving you,
mm,
sometimes you have to release people, places, and things in order for you to operate in a space of love, and that's okay.
mm. And a place of safety too,
Yes,
because I think everybody's, like you said, everybody's idea or everybody's, of operating from place of love might be different. For me, when I talk about operating from a place of love, my first thing is safety,
yes,
because I don't want people to feel unsafe around me. I don't want people to feel that they cannot come to me when they are feeling unsafe. That is me operating from a place of love, because I need safety in order to operate from a place of love. And if
yeah.
I feel unsafe or I feel exposed or I feel, I'm not really operating from a place of love, I'm operating from a place of survival.
Mm,
Okay. So I think for a lot of people, safety might come in a different term, it might come in a different way. But for me, if you are to operate from a place of love, again, I go back to how you want to be treated, treat others the way you want to be treated, make people feel safe the way you want to feel safe, right? And allow space for
yes,
people to just be. Now,
yes,
again, like I said, the generational conditioning, we couldn't just be sometimes, right? If you are operating from a place of love, you need to allow people to be. Because if people are not allowed to be, they are not safe,
that's true.
right? And the other thing is operate with empathy
Yes.
for
Oh,
yourself and for other people. That's my version of operating from a place of love. I deal with people in an empathetic way, even if I don't like what they're saying, even if I don't agree with what they're saying. I might have an opinion, but I'm always empathetic. I'm never nasty. because I don't agree with them. But
Right.
I'm breaking a generational curse by doing that, because a lot of us were told to keep quiet. Nobody can understand how to operate from a place of love and authenticity if they've constantly been told to keep quiet.
Yeah.
So you have to create that space for people so that they feel okay to have an opinion, even if
Right.
it doesn't align with yours, you know?
Yes. I love that you said that because so many people get into huge arguments and disagreements because they
Mm.
don't agree. None
Yeah,
of us are going to always agree. Like that's
correct,
just life.
correct.
And but even though we don't agree, we can be respectful. Not
Mm.
only can we be respectful, but we can also provide that safety and empathy to that person as
Mm.
we're listening to what they're giving us in the information. Many times people don't feel safe to share because
Yes.
they are afraid of the huge conflict or toxic energy that
Mm.
comes. And if you feel that you can't share because that person may be toxic or may display negative energy
Or
towards you,
react. Yeah.
then it's best for you to remove yourself from that situation and
Mm.
remember, secure your safety first.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, that's the basis for everything. And I think, in terms of the generational conditioning, going back to that, obviously, because you can't, like I said, operate authentically if you are not removing some of those blocks that the generational conditioning gave you. A lot of us experience that if we have an opinion, there's going to be an argument. If we live our lives according to our boundaries and beliefs, there's going to be an argument. So, what we tend to end up doing is we end up living double lives,
Yes.
because we are allowing the conditioning to take over in some circumstances, and in others, we're freeing ourselves from it. And that is not healthy either. And I think if we break that, if we just break that for our children, um, we can just thrive authentically. We can thrive from a place of love all the time. You want to wake up and feel that you need to operate like this all the time. You don't want to wake up and feel like you need to have a boundary every single day of your life. It's not healthy. You want to be able to be free and full of love, and I think that's something really important to remember. Is like, if I look at my daughter, sometimes she's so honest with me, it scares.
I understand.
Sometimes she tells me things that I did not need to have that information. I didn't need to know it. I believe you. Like, no. But this is what happens when you allow people to have space, right? To speak and be themselves. I can't hate her for it, because
Right.
she could have gone to somebody else and told them. But she's coming to her mother,
Right.
right? So when we speak about these things, these conditions that we need to break, we need to have a look at what we could potentially be doing, good or bad, to the next generation if we don't break the cycle.
I agree.
What are you teaching them? Do you want them to go to a stranger, or do you want them to come to you with the truth that you might not like to hear, but it's the truth,
Right.
you know?
Yes. I completely agree. This topic has been such an amazing discussion. Um,
Definitely.
NeeNee, thank you so much for being here with us today. You have provided so much wealth of information in regards to how we can learn to be our authentic selves and break these generational conditions. What would you like to leave us with today?
I don't have anything in particular, but I would like to say thank you for having me on the show. I do like these topics of conversation. I like being asked to talk about some of these things, because, as you know, we can't fit everything in half an hour or an hour, because it is quite deep, but it allows our minds to be open to other things. So thank you for the platform. Thank you for inviting me to the show. Um, one thing I will say to people is, again, be real with people, operate with people how you want other people to operate with you, and deal with people authentically, because you just never know what kind of, sometimes, I don't know if you believe this, but sometimes God puts people in your life to be a blessing. And if you hinder that blessing, or you don't recognize it, you could miss out on something really great for your life. So if you deal with people authentically, you will come across those people as you go along. If you don't, people are generally going to stay away from you. And I've been operating from this authentic place, and I've come across, including yourself, many amazing human beings that have opened my mind, that have loved me, that have cherished me in ways that I've never been cherished before. So just deal with people, just be real with people, be authentic, because you just don't know who's waiting for you on the other side, you know?
That is absolutely true. Anyone who's listening, please go and follow NeeNee the Poet on Instagram, where she gives so many amazing motivational and inspirational tips, quotes, videos, and just helping us to have a positive mindset in regards to moving forward in our life in this journey. This has been such a pleasure. I want you all to please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so that you can see when I am posting new videos. Thank you so much for watching the show. I love you all, and may you have an amazing evening or day, depending on the time zone that you're in this